I don't like U2. I don't like Bono either. Although, that said, he seems to be a lot more likeable these days, although he does get some things wrong. And, you know, one of the things that warmed me to him was when he finally explained why he always wears the sunglasses. It's glaucoma. Of course it is. I mean, why wouldn't it be? And that made me think, you know what? He's not as much of a dickhead as I thought he was, although he's still pretty much on one of my worst people ever lists. Nah, I'm just joking. And well, it seems now I have to go back to defending somebody whose music I don't actually like, although I do like 2 U2 albums. That's I think it's a Joshua Tree and Acton Baby. I don't mind them, they're okay. They don't beat New Order for me, and they certainly don't beat Joy Division either. As much as U2 fans would like to say, no, they don't. So, I've done a video like this before where I defended Ed Sheeran from a hit piece in Playboy of all magazines, and this time, The Independent are attacking Bono over comments he made about hip-hop, which by the way, are not what they say it is. We'll be touching on what he actually said in the Rolling Stone article that they have basically made a whole article about. Only a few words, by the way, they based this on. Only a few. And the article is titled thus: Bono, stop pining for the good old days of masculine music. They never existed. Now, what do they mean by that? It could be anything from James Brown, it could be hip-hop, it could be more aggressive rock acts like metal, or it could even be progressive rock, which was overwhelmingly a male audience. And that's not always heavy, that's not always balls to the floor, and that could just be something introspective or arty-farty. Like, that appealed to a majority male, although middle class, highly intellectual group of people. So, you know, it's not some term that you can definitely say that is something for men. It's a long spectrum, can we say. Apparently that never existed, and clearly it did, and it's pretty clear that the influence, or rather people making that type of music, has decreased over the last couple of years. So another day, another aging male rock star blundering in to share his thoughts on the modern music industry. I think music has gotten very girly, Bono announced in an interview with Rolling Stone, and there are some good things about that, but hip hop is the only place for young male anger at the moment, and that's not good. There's nothing wrong with saying that, and actually if you look at surveys made on at least the UK and Irish charts, you can see overwhelmingly that the type of artists that are currently hitting the top 40 outside of hip hop are catering more towards a female audience, or are female themselves. Like, this was something that was made a point about years ago, well before all this identity politics stuff really kicked off, noting a lack of male songwriters in the top 10 or even the top 40. No Bob Dylan types, no rock bands that are outside of the big ones, which they later get into. And, well, we'll talk about how they completely mislabel pretty much every band on there, or artist. It's true, it has become more female orientated, which isn't a bad thing. He never said it was bad, he said it has its good things, and it does. But if hip hop is the only place where a man or a young man can musically let out that emotion, that anger, that's not good. There needs to be more avenues for that person to express all that stuff and become successful, and Bono thinks rock music can be one of those avenues which has been lost, and that's right, there's nothing wrong with that. Ignoring his use of the pejorative girly, which he didn't actually use as a pejorative, it was really more of a descriptive term, which is true. It's quite staggering that the U2 frontman and Glamour's Woman of the Year 2016, that's right, chose this, a year where festival headliners were relentlessly dominated by angry white male acts, Muse, Kasabian, Eminem, Foo Fighters, Radiohead, to state his case. You mean rock festivals, or the more mainstream ones like Glastonbury? Well, see, let's take a look at some of those examples. Muse have some angry songs, but they were not the angry white boy band. Especially since if you look at Chris Wolstenholme, he looks pretty mixed race, doesn't he? But whatever. Kasabian, they've got the arrogance, but they're not angry. But when I think of Kasabian, even their earliest record, like, no, I don't see anger in it at all. It's just rock music, not angry rock music. They're too groovy and, I don't know, slightly experimental for that. Slightly. Eminem, he's the only one on here that's actually genuinely angry. He's the only one. And even then, he's somebody who would probably agree with you on this, because that's how far he's fallen. Foo Fighters, maybe in the early days, but it's pretty clear that they've mellowed and they just make more heavy rock music. I'm not saying heavy metal, but that's pretty much all they do. Radiohead, angry. Mopey, I'll give you that, but angry? Really? You don't listen to music, it's pretty clear. But again, they're ignoring the fact that these are the main festivals where there's either loads of different genres on display or it's a primarily rock audience. So they're being disingenuous in saying that all the big festival headliners were angry white male acts when they're not. And also, All these acts have been around for so long that they've become part of the musical establishment and thus bring great audiences. That's another reason why they're there. Bono's certainly not the first to make the tedious case for rock music not being the same as it used to be. All music isn't the same that it used to be. Hip hop even, as it's approaching its own middle or old age, isn't the same that it used to be. In fact, you can argue even 10 years ago people were complaining about gangster rap, how it's not the same as it used to be. How they're not talking about real big issues but flashing the cash and flexing. Like, you know, these things always happen. It's become almost a monthly ritual. Daily if you're a Gallagher brother. Come on, really? That's a poor joke. Musicians including Damon Albarn, Gene Simmons, everyone in Kasabian. Well, I've not seen that. The late Lemmy Kilmister, Flea, all lamenting the fact that people, fans and industry have moved on, and they are exclusively male. Sure. Have you ever bothered to ask what Heart think about this? You know, a female-led heavy metal band? Have you ever thought to ask them about that? Or Hailstorm? Or Kate Bush? I know she's not exactly rock, but she's rock influenced. Have you ever thought to ask those artists their opinions? No, I don't think you would, because you might get the exact same answer. By the way, all those artists I mentioned have primarily male audiences. Yes, Kate Bush, primarily male audience, because she caters to that progressive art rock kind of crowd. Yeah, also she's very hot, and of course would attract male listeners who have good taste in music and women. What can I say? But Bono's suggestion that the genre was good because it provided young men with an outlet for aggression is not just boring, it's ignorant and misleading. Particularly when he throws out The Who as an example. No one is denying The Who's greatness, but to link their success to rage rather than talent is insulting, particularly given the death of the band's drummer Keith Moon, aged 32, after years of self-destructive and property-damaging behaviour, along with issues of domestic violence and struggles with addiction. He never said that, and we'll look at his comments in a minute. To then cite Pearl Jam, one of the few rock bands of the early 90s to make vocal statements in support of feminism, and who penned songs such as Better Man, about a woman trapped in a bad relationship is just bizarre. No, I was talking about the lead singer and how he could channel his rage into making good music, and that's perfectly fine. He wasn't talking about politics. You have politicised what he has said and of trying to make a hit piece about him. I don't like Bono, and what you're doing is wrong. I would never do this. Now, let's take a look at the actual article where they've literally taken these words from and quoted them out of context and basically misrepresented what he said. And it all comes down to this. The interviewer asks him, how do you discover new music? The band is always listening to music, and I've got my kids. Jordan is a music snob, an indie snob. Eve is hip hop. Elijah is in a band, and he's got very strong feelings about music, but he doesn't make any distinction between, let's say, The Who and The Killers, or, you know, Nirvana and Royal Blood. It's not generational for him. It's the sound and what he's experiencing. He believes that a rock and roll revolution is around the corner. Now, nowhere does he say that the rage in The Who was the reason why they became successful, and in fact he quotes them further on down below. I think this is where they really got it from, but in this case he's talking about his son liking The Who and not seeing much of a difference between them and another band he likes, The Killers, which is actually kind of my philosophical take on music as well. It doesn't really matter how old they are or what type of music they do. If it resonates with me, I'm going to like it. I guess that's what he's saying. And that's how he discovers new music. So he's clearly not clueless about the modern music scene. And also hip-hop either, because considering how old he is, he was around to listen to it and was the primary age to listen to it before the interviewer and the person who made the hit piece about him. So I do think there's a little bit of snobbery going on there, and this person needs to shut up, because I think Bono kind of knows what he's on about here. And then the interviewer asks if he believes there is going to be a revolution. He says, I think music has gotten very girly and there's some good things about that, but hip hop is the only place for young male anger at the moment, and that's not good. When I was 16 I had a lot of anger in me. You need to find a place for it, and for guitars, whether it is with a drum machine, I don't care. The moment something becomes preserved, it's fucking over. You might as well put it in formaldehyde. In the end, what is rock and roll? Rage is at the heart of it. Some great rock and roll tend to have that, which is why The Who was such a great band, or Pearl Jam. Eddie has that rage. Yeah, he's not saying it's the only reason, he said rage is a reason why they were a great band, and you can see why. Not only were they four talented musicians, with or without the personal trauma that the stupid independent journalist decides to blabble on about because it's not relevant to anything. It was this talent which managed to funnel that rage into something creative that made them such a great band, or rather what made Pete Townsend such a good songwriter. But you can't deny the other three. Keith, probably the greatest drummer of all time. John Entwistle, one of the greatest bass players of all time. And Roger, one of the greatest singers of all time. I mean, come on. The rage was there, and the rage is one of the reasons why they were good. But it wasn't the reason, and nor does he say it was the reason. So you're misrepresenting what he's saying there. And with Pearl Jam, again, it's the same reason. And then they go on to wax lyrical further, so let's get on with this, shall we? Bono's example of hip-hop as one of the few channels for his male aggression he longs to hear are equally appalling, given how Kendrick Lamar featured on Get Out of Your Own Way from U2's latest record, Songs of Experience, and after they collaborated on American Soul. And what does that say? He's not downplaying hip-hop, he's not insulting hip-hop, he's not insulting hip-hop artists, he's pointing out a truth that it is the only outlet for young male aggression in music, or at least the only way to be successful at it. Lamar, one of the most intelligent, thoughtful and progressive artists the world has seen in years, has pioneered a new wave of hip-hop, inspiring fellow artists from genres that 20 years ago were as far away from one another as it was possible to be. You ignore the fact that Public Enemy already beat him in terms of being intelligent and thoughtful, even if I don't always agree with what they have to say, years before. Oh, and also, they were pioneering collaborations with other artists from different genres long before Kendrick. I mean, do you not remember their collaboration with Anthrax? Bring the Noise, which was based on one of their own songs. Like, that brought not only two disparate genres like metal and hip-hop together, but also black and white people who otherwise would never known they actually had something in common. I mean, let's be honest, out of the two genres in the world that have something in common, hip-hop and metal do seem to have something in common. An outsider kind of image. People don't like them, they're angry, they're aggressive, and they have all these other sides to them. So it made sense, and it worked. They did it long before Kendrick, and let's not forget Tribe Called Quest. Kendrick is all these things, and Bono did not in any way insult him or other hip-hop artists who were like him or did anything 20 years ago. I think he would know about that. Why else would he have worked with him, I wonder? To have worked with him and still come away dismissing hip-hop as a place for young male anger does a disservice to both the female pioneers of the genre, from Lauryn Hill, Queen Latifah, Missy Elliott and Lil' Kim, to newer acts like Rhapsody and Sid. In no way did he dismiss hip-hop as just that. That's not what he said, and you're just misrepresenting what he said. All he was saying is that it's not right that it's the only place where that is acceptable, or is the only place where you can make a living off of that. We're not talking about dismissing a genre. Why would he work with him if he didn't like the genre? Again, as I said before in the past, he's been listening to it longer than all of us together, so does it really matter? It also ignores male artists such as Drake, Frank Ocean, Chance the Rapper, Future and Jay-Z, whose best work delves into emotions more complex than pure rage. Well, it's funny that you say that about those black artists, but when it comes to Eminem, you can't give him the same nuance. His greatest song, Stan, or maybe, you know, the other one, Lose Yourself, also delve into those deep emotional subjects. But apparently he's just a white male act who's angry. Okay, but again, he worked with somebody who is in that vein, and even then, you're attacking him. I don't think you've really thought this through, have you? It reduces hip-hop to the laziest possible stereotype of black masculinity as aggressive. It ignores artists like Tupac, who released Dear Mama in 1995 to counter those very stereotypes, and to pay tribute to female strength, and Nas in 2003 with I Can, in which he encouraged children to value self-respect and remind them how much they have to be proud of, and all the other artists who came before and after them. Again, he's not doing that. You're just putting words in his mouth. The U2 frontman also seems to conveniently forget how one of the first and most successful rock and roll bands of all time, the Beatles, they were not one of the first. There was a whole 10 years of rock and roll before them. A band who capitalised on writing emotionally complex songs like Eleanor Rigby, She Loves You, Across the Universe, and While My Guitar Gently Weeps. 1-2 of those songs aren't actually complex, emotionally. And yet, these were songs written after they were teenagers, where they're in their angsty phase. You do know that, right? And we'll get into that in a little while later. He also seems to forget his own music. One of U2's biggest songs of all time is the heartfelt romantic ballad With or Without You. Is he sneering at the millions of fans, men and women, who cried to that song? The YouTube comments that say things like, I love this song with passion. I can't put it into words. It's a strange connection, I feel. Well, you do know he wrote that song when he was in his mid to late 20s. And when you're in your mid to late 20s, you calm down, you begin to, you know, stop being angry all the time and emotional as your hormones start to relax a little bit and you move out of puberty. You begin to think about things in a more introspective light, you become a bit more smarter. Maybe that's why he wrote that, because he was no longer a 16-year-old to 19-year-old. Maybe 2021 at a push. But that's what we're talking about here. That's what he explicitly said. He was talking about kids and the anger that they have growing up, and that only allowing it to channel through hip-hop is a bad thing. It should be other genres, especially rock and roll. We're not talking about proper, fully grown adults. Bono is clinging to a time when men were told it's not okay to show emotions regarded as feminine. Ergo, don't cry, don't show you're upset, don't be a girl about it, shut it up inside instead. Bottle that rage and either channel it into loud music or into actual physical aggression. That's not what he's doing at all. He wants them to channel the rage into musical talent. That's what he wants. He's actually telling them to express it. How could you come to the conclusion that him wanting people to express their rage, to express what they don't like and their emotions as a musician, is somehow telling them to bottle it up and that he comes from that? What? Rock music never was and never should be simply a place to channel male anger. He never said it should be the only thing. He said it should be one of many places where a man can go to express that anger. And even then, he's not just talking about primal anger. It could be anger about anything. Anything whatsoever. It's music. You can express whatever you want. Otherwise, we'd be hearing the same tired album again and again. Perhaps that's where U2 went wrong with Songs of Experience. Well, I've not listened to it, so I don't know. And apparently, it's not at all what you describe it as to be, from reading the article that you plundered all this shit from. Music is a chance to express something universal, which connects with the artist's audience when they themselves are struggling to put it into words. And rage is something that every human being has felt. So that's okay, that's an emotion that we've all experienced and felt. So how come we shouldn't be allowed to express that? So actually you are telling people to bottle it in, not you two. So, it gets people on their feet and into arenas, has them singing along in tears at how their favourite artist has managed to pin down exactly what they're feeling all this time. And at the ecstasy and elation that comes with sharing that feeling with thousands of people at the same time. What's more rock and roll than that? Yes. And that is why you see in the 1960s and the 1950s all those teenagers going berserk. Because they're channeling all that rage, all that emotion, all that frustration during the very conservative times in which they lived in. I'm not talking about 1967, 68 here, I'm talking before that. They're going crazy because they had no other avenues to let that out, and that's music's job to do, and that's why they went crazy. Rock music helped that, and hip hop does it now for a younger audience. There's no reason why rock music can't do the same thing. I mean, why not? The two are tailor-made for each other, not to be separate. So in the end, this is nothing more than a hit piece. The artist in question has done nothing wrong, but the journalist in question has only gone and misrepresented Bono's words into something that he didn't actually say, as called actually projecting, because it's that person who doesn't want young males to channel their rage into something creative. It seems like the journalist would rather have these young males bottle up that rage or just do something else. I've had fun making this video. Hope you had fun watching it, people. This has been your boy, and I'll see you later.